Nikki first ran for office. There's a few of y'all. Now, don't lie. A lot of people didn't know Nikki Haley 18 years ago, so don't lie. But y'all know what she did. She saw a problem with state government. She wanted to represent you guys of Lexington County, and she decided to throw her hat into the ring. Now, there was a guy who had that seat. He thought everybody loved him. He thought he did a great job. A little arrogant. He was like, who in the world's going to challenge me? Now, y'all, I'm not talking about current day stuff. It sounds like that. I'm sorry. What I'm talking about is 18 years ago when Nikki Haley first got elected because of you guys. You guys did it for her back then. And then fast forward after a couple of years, she learned about state government. She saw a lot of problems that all y'all knew was going on. She was tired of the same old guys doing the same old stuff. So she decided to run for governor. Y'all remember there were 4 people in that race. There was a congressman, there was a lieutenant governor, there was an attorney general, and there was little old Nikki Haley. Nobody gave her a shot in hell. Y'all know that. People thought she'd finish 5th in a 4-man race. But you know what? She almost won it outright on that first ballot because of you guys, because of Lexington County. She ended up being our governor. She ended up turning South Carolina into the beast of the East, where we continue to bring in jobs. She put us on the map, and then you know what? People took notice. And President Trump said, you know what? I need a fighter on the international stage, the biggest stage around. I need somebody to fight for America. Who'd he choose? Nikki Haley is who he chose. Y'all saw what she did. She wears those heels. She likes to kick with a smile. Y'all know how she works. She gets stuff done. She sees a problem, she fixes it. But you know what? Everybody underestimates her. That is fine. That is fine. Did anybody see the news today about how much money she raised in a short period of time? Holy smokes. She's just getting started, y'all. She just announced in Charleston a few weeks ago, raised $11 million. Some of that's from y'all here. She's going to need more of that. And what she's going to need is the same thing that got her in the State House, the same thing that made her become governor, the same thing that got the country's attention. She's going to need y'all to talk about her. This is what she does. I'm getting that feeling again that I had many a times when she has events out here. Y'all know what happens when she's out here. She wins, and she does it because of y'all. So now I want y'all to get a big round of applause. Hoot and holler up for our own, my good friend, and with your help, the next president of the United States of America, Nikki Haley.
So in case you didn't know, it's a great day in South Carolina. And I'm thrilled to be back in my old stomping ground. You know, this was my district. This was the district where it all got started. And I've got to tell you, I know it's spring break this week, but it's also Nayland's spring break. So when he knew we were coming, he wanted to ride past our old house. He wanted to ride past Mount Horeb. He wanted to ride past New Providence. He wanted to ride past Lexington High School and where Rena went to school, River Bluff. And so it was just really fun to come back and see everything. But the truth is, we've all been through a lot together. We really have. If you go back, it all started when one day I was sitting with my mom in the store complaining about how hard it was to make $1 and how easy it was for government to take it. And she said, don't complain about it, do something about it. I did not know you weren't supposed to run against a 30-year incumbent in a primary. But once we realized he was related to half the district, the only option was to win. And we went around the district and said, no disrespect to the incumbent, but we think they have a lot of lawyers at the State House, and we think they need a really good accountant. And everybody got to work, and we worked that district like no one else, and we won. And when we got to the State House, I don't know if you remember, we ran into issues right when we got there. Because in South Carolina, legislation was typically passed by voice vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nays. The ayes have it. But one day, they issued a bill that would give legislators a pay raise. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, silence. The ayes have it. Yet to this day, you can't find anyone that says they voted themselves a pay raise. Now here we had a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican governor. And I was so upset, I went to the Speaker of the House and I said, this is why people don't trust us. And I filed a bill that said anything important enough to be debated on the floor of the House or the Senate is important enough for people to know how their legislators voted. And the Speaker said, put the bill away. We don't need to have it. We will decide what the public needs to see and what they don't. And I remember going home to Michael that night saying, if we can't even get legislative votes on the record, what are we doing here? And he said, then fight. And the fighter that was right beside me, no one else, was Nathan Ballantyne. And I thank you then, I thank you now for being there. So I went around the state of South Carolina and told everybody, I said, did you know of all the bills passed in the House, only 8% were on the record? Did you know of all the bills passed in the Senate, only 1% was on the record? So if you didn't know how your House member voted 92% of the time, if you didn't know how your senator voted 99% of the time, how'd you know who to vote for at the polls? And the people of South Carolina were shocked. Now, to put this all in perspective, my first year in office, I was chairman of the freshman class. My second year, I was majority whip. My third year, I was on Powerful Business Committee. And my fourth year, I was subcommittee chair of banking. The year that we didn't put the bill away, me and Nathan both, they stripped us of everything. We could take the well, no one would hear us speak. We could file a bill, no one would co-sponsor. So I ran for governor. And I'm proud to say that one of the first bills we signed into law is now in South Carolina. Anything debated on the floor of the House or the Senate requires a legislative vote on the record, and we took it a step further. We did it on every section of the budget. And did y'all like the playlist that I played today? So I love music, so on the day of the bill signing, we blasted music in the State House. It was Pat Benatar's Hit Me With Your Best Shot. We did some great things in South Carolina. We took a state that had double-digit unemployment, and we turned it into an economic powerhouse. And we also looked at the fact that in 2011, we wanted to make sure that our elections were credible. And we pushed voter ID back in 2011, and they vilified us for it. And what I said then was, if you have to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show picture ID to get on a plane, shouldn't you have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process? Well, the media didn't like it, but I said, if you think I'm disenfranchising people, I hear you. So anyone that can't get an ID, we will pick them up, we will give them a ride, we will give them a free ID at the DMV, and we will return them home safely. Do you know how many people asked for a ride? Out of 5 million people in South Carolina, 25. But we passed voter ID in South Carolina, and now you know that we have integrity in our election process. So by the time I left being governor, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz, Volvo. We brought in GT Tire, Continental Tire. We had 5 international tire companies. And yes, they were calling us the beast of the Southeast. And then I got the phone call to go to the United Nations. And I remember saying, I don't even know what the United Nations does. I just know everybody hates it. But when you get that call to defend your country, you jump. And when we went to the United Nations, I wanted those countries to know what America was for and what America was against. I didn't care if they didn't like me, but I wanted them to respect America. And we got to work. And we were able to get out of the Iran deal. We were able to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. We were able to put the largest sanctions against any country in a generation with North Korea. But more importantly, we were able to take the kick me sign off of our backs at the United Nations. And so now you can look at, well, you don't even have to look at the news, but you feel how bad everything is. You feel it at the grocery store. You feel it in our schools. You feel it when you're walking around. You see it when you look at the bank system. It's bad. So I'm running for president because when I looked at all of that, something has to give. We are $31 trillion in debt. We are borrowing money just to make our interest payments. And the spending is out of control. And it's easy for us to blame Biden. But I've always been a truth teller to you, and I've always told you hard truths even when it hurt. Our Republicans did that to us too. You go back and you look at that COVID stimulus bill with no accountability whatsoever, $2.2 trillion that they passed that expanded welfare. We now have 90 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. And look at what they did. They paid people to sit on the couch. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they doubled down. You know what our Republicans did after that? They opened back up earmarks for the first time in 10 years. So $7.5 million for horse racing in Arizona, $30 million for an honors college in Vermont, $10 million for a courthouse in Colorado. That's not how you want your money spent. That's not how I want my money spent. So something's got to give. And you know, they say Republicans and Democrats don't agree on anything. They do agree on wasting our money. They have no problem doing that, and they've done it constantly in D.C. ever since. So we have to start looking at, and all of that, you compound that, and while they're spending on those port projects, 1 in 6 Americans can't pay their utility bill. 60% of Americans are in credit card debt. 50% of Americans are saying that they're not as well off as they were a year ago. Social Security will be bankrupt in 10 years. Medicare will be bankrupt in 5. Now you look at our education system, and everybody wants to say COVID did this to our schools. We had a problem with education before COVID. Did you know pre-COVID, 70% of 8th graders in our country were not proficient in reading? Think about that. Pre-COVID, 66% of 8th graders were not proficient in math. Now you go and you add lockdowns, and our kids are in a world of hurt. Yet you've got 90% of American kids who are under critical race theory, where if you send a little girl to kindergarten, if she's white, you're telling her she's bad, and if she's brown or black, you're telling her she's never going to be good enough and she's always going to be a victim. And now you have men playing in girls' sports. My daughter ran track. I don't even know how I'd have that conversation with her. This is our kids. Now you go and you look at the crime situation. First of all, how great is Sheriff Kuhn? Thank you, Sheriff. And all of our law enforcement officers that are here today. Crime is up all over the country. You see people are now worried about their children riding their bikes down the street. They're worried about getting carjacked going to a restaurant. And then you look at the illegal immigration situation. 4.8 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border just in the past couple of years. I was just on the border. I rode 400 miles of that border from Hondo, Texas to Del Rio all the way to Eagle Pass. What is happening is not American. What is happening is abusive. It's abusive to those trying to come across. It's abusive to those ranchers that are there. I met with sheriffs. They said they're spending all their time getting these illegal immigrants. They turn them over to Border Patrol, and what does Border Patrol do? Write their names down and sends them off for a court case 2 or 3 years from now. Then you go and you look, and I asked border agents, I said, tell me what you're going through. And they said, do you want to know what we do? We're babysitters. He said they won't even let us do our job. And if you ask any of the National Guardsmen that have worked the border, they'll tell you that when they work it, they're given a clicker. So every time one goes over, they just click. They're not allowed to apprehend. We have had more fentanyl cross the border that would kill every single American last year. The number one cause of death for adults 18 to 49, fentanyl overdoses. In 2021, 70,000 Americans died from synthetic opioids. Now let me tell you, this isn't like druggies. These are our kids that will go online and get an Adderall to help with tests and give it to their friends. I just talked to a couple of weeks ago. That's how their son died. He thought he was taking an Adderall before a test. And let's not even talk about the fact that China is sending this over, and China knows exactly what they're doing when they're sending it over. And then you look at our foreign policy situation. Did you ever think you would look up at the sky and see a Chinese spy balloon looking back at you? It was a national embarrassment. I told everybody, yes, South Carolina has the best beaches, but that's not why they went over our beaches. They know that we're a strong military state. But none of this would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. Now, y'all know we have the first gentleman here. He doesn't like me to call him out, but he deployed to Afghanistan. He's a combat veteran, but think about it. We left Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our allies. More importantly, think about what it told our enemies. Now you go and you look at what's happened. We've got a Chinese spy balloon. You've got Iran ready to build a bomb. You've got Russia who's invaded Ukraine. And then you look, China's built up their military. They have more air defense systems than we do. They have the largest naval fleet in the world. They just developed the 5th generation fighter jet, and they got that by stealing our intellectual property. President Xi started a commission that said any company that does business in China has to cooperate with the Chinese military. Think about our tech companies. Think about all your financial data. Think about all your healthcare data. Think about all your children's lifestyle data and know that the Chinese military has it. President Xi said whoever owns the data rules the world. And now he's partnered with Russia. We saw it before the Olympics. They named themselves unlimited partners. And just recently, he showed up on Russia's doorstep and was caught on a hot mic saying, we are about to change the world order for the first time in 100 years, and we're going to do it together. That's how bad it is. But now I'm going to tell you, like I told you when I was your governor, no more whining about it. No more complaining about it. Now we get to work. So how do we solve it? The first thing we do is we focus in on our economy, and we start by clawing back $500 billion of COVID money they haven't spent. Rather than those 87,000 IRS agents, let's fire those 87,000 IRS agents that are going after middle America. And instead go after the hundreds of billions of dollars in COVID money that we know is fraudulent, that has been spent. Let's make sure we stop the spending. No more spending. I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID numbers. I had to balance a budget as your governor in South Carolina. You've got to balance a budget at home. You have to balance it in your businesses. There is no reason Congress can't balance a budget. I think it's time we made them do that. 15% of our budget is interest. cut up the credit cards, quit borrowing. We've got to stop that. We'll stop all the borrowing. And yes, we will do entitlement reform. But the way you do entitlement reform is you don't touch anybody that's given in. You don't take from anybody that's been promised. My parents are in their 80s. We take care of them. I don't want anybody bothering theirs. But my kids are in their 20s. We go to them and we say the rules have changed for you. We change their benefits to where it reflects life expectancy. We go and we say that we are no longer we're gonna limit what is given to the wealthy. We're gonna expand Medicare Advantage plans so that there are more options and more competition and drive down the debt. When we start to do those things, that's when we'll suddenly start getting our fiscal house in order. And then when it comes to education, what we knew in South Carolina was if a child couldn't read by 3rd grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So what we did in South Carolina was we said any child that couldn't read by the 3rd grade, we held them back. We started doing reading remediation. We made sure we worked with their families to get it done. We're going to do that all over the country. We're going to make sure our kids can read again. And yes, we're going to make sure that parents get to decide which school their children go to. We will make sure we have school choice everywhere. We need to focus on the fact that, they had that bill in Florida, that Don't Say Gay bill. Do you remember that? And it basically said you couldn't talk about gender before the 3rd grade. I don't think that went far enough. When I was in school, you didn't have sex ed until 7th grade. And even then, you had to have a permission slip signed by your parents. And my dad wouldn't sign it, so I was the uncool kid in the classroom next door. That's not the role of schools. Teachers have enough on their plate. They should be teaching reading and writing and math and science and history. School bureaucrats do not get to parent our kids. That's for us to do. That's for us to talk about. Then we'll make sure that we start to build things in America again, and we'll put vocational classes in high school so that our kids know what it is that we're building. And we'll go to all of our universities and say, you can either take Chinese money or American money, but the days of you getting both is over. We will get that Chinese infiltration out of our schools. When it comes to crime, it's simple. You have the backs of your law enforcement officers and you take the numbers of those criminals. And you make sure that our district attorneys understand that their job is to prosecute according to the law. And when it comes to illegal immigration, we are going to stop it once and for all. And the way we're going to do that, do you remember in South Carolina, we passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. What we did was we put in place an E-Verify program that said every business had to verify anybody that they hired was here legally. That's how we got all the illegals out of South Carolina, because they didn't have a job. We will put mandatory E-Verify across the country to make sure we know exactly who has the jobs in South Carolina. Billions of your dollars have gone to pay for illegal immigrants. We will stop all handouts going to any illegal immigrants in this country. We are going to make sure that we go back to remain in Mexico, which Biden stopped. We're going to keep Title 42, which is going to end in May, and we need to make sure that that stays in place. But instead of catch and release, we will catch and deport. That's what we have to do. When that happens, we will, for the first time, have illegal immigration under control so that we can focus on what really matters. And then when it comes to foreign policy, we tell countries what we're for, what we're against. Most importantly, we tell them what we expect of them. I want to tell you a story. When I was at the UN, when we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we were condemned by the world. And I was so mad because America can put its embassy anywhere we want. We have always put our embassy in the capital of every country. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and we were acknowledging a truth. But on that day, 128 countries voted against us. And I went back to my office and I told my staff, I said, I want you to put a book together. I want you to list all 193 countries. And I want the second column to be the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And then I want the third column to be how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book and I gave it to President Trump. He lost his mind. He's flipping pages. He's yelling out countries. And I said to him, I said, I'm not saying you give foreign aid based on a percentage vote, but that should be one of the things we look at. Quit trying to buy friends. Quit trying to pay off enemies. We will stop paying money to countries that hate America. Last year, your Congress gave $46 billion in foreign aid. Do you know who they gave it to? They gave it to Pakistan, who harbored terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. They gave it to Iraq, who's infiltrated now with Iranians that say death to America. They gave it to Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country there is. They gave it to Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia in this fight against Ukraine. They gave it to communist Cuba, who we said was a sponsor of terrorism. And yes, you're not ready, they gave money to China. We have to stop that. So we will make sure that we don't give our money carelessly to anyone. We will make sure countries know what to expect of us. And I know right now there's a big dispute about how we should be handling Russia and Ukraine. Let me tell you something. When we were at the United Nations, we had no better friend than Ukraine. They voted with us on everything. If I was at a press conference, they were standing there without me even asking. There was not one thing they went against us on. But this war is bigger than Russia and Ukraine. This is a war about freedom. And it's a war we have to win. Now, think about what happened to this country. You had people that went and invaded their country, tried to steal their freedoms away. And what did they do? The men went straight to the front lines and started to fight for their country. The women said they weren't going to sit still, and they made Molotov cocktails to help. And everybody gave them 5 days. And they have fought so hard and so passionately that Putin is on his last leg. They are now getting drones from Iran and missiles from North Korea. They have raised the draft age in Russia to 65. Last week, they took Russians off the streets and they handed them shovels to fight with. They will win this. They would have won it first if Biden would have handled it quicker. But I am not saying we put money in Ukraine's pockets. I don't think we should give them money. I'm not saying we put troops on the ground. But I'm saying we get with our allies and we partner up and we give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. Because if Ukraine wins, it will send a message to China that wants to take Taiwan. It'll send a message to Iran that's trying to build a bomb. It'll send a message to North Korea that's testing ballistic missiles. If we lose, believe dictators when they tell you. China said they were going to take Hong Kong. We watched it. Russia said they were going to invade Ukraine. They did. China said Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said Poland and the Baltics are next. If Russia wins, then we're looking at a world war. That's what we're trying to prevent. So we need to strengthen our military. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. And we will stop making our military take gender pronoun classes. But look, in order for us to do this, All of those things can be fixed. But the one that still bothers me the most is this national self-loathing that has taken over our country. The idea that they're saying America's rotten, or that it's bad, or that it's racist. You elected me the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, America's blessed. But we need our kids to love America. We need our kids to say the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of every day. We need to remember, just like those Ukrainians remember, what it means to fight for our country because she's worth saving. But in order to do that, we are going to have a new generation of leader. We're going to have to leave the baggage and the status quo and the drama of the past. And we're going to have to focus on what it really takes to win. And in order to do that, that's going to require a lot of courage. Courage for me to run. And courage for every one of you to understand, don't complain about what you get in a general if you don't play in this primary. Do you remember when you were growing up how simple life was? How easy it felt? It was about faith, family, and country. We went to school and we learned what it meant to be successful. But at home and church, we learned what it meant to have a faith and a conscience and to be a responsible individual. Don't you want that again? You can have that again. You can have that. You don't deserve what you're dealing with right now. Your families don't deserve what you're dealing with right now. But the way we will fix it is when you send a badass Republican woman to the White House. So I want to remind you of the journey we've been on together. When I first said I was running for that state house race, people laughed at me. And I got to work, and I earned your support, and we won. When I ran for governor, I ran against a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, a very popular congressman, and a state senator. I was Nikki Who. I had 3% in the polls, and I had the least amount of money. And I worked this state like no one else, and you invested in me, and we won. When I went to the United Nations, they said I didn't have enough experience. And I got to work, and we took the kick me sign off of our backs. Lexington, we've got to do it one more time. One more time. Fact, the polls you see today will not be the polls you see a year from now. Fact, don't let the media tell you who you should be for and who you should be against. Every single time y'all listened to your own guts and you did it. And we need to do it again. They love to go and give us, look at what that's gotten us. Don't let them do that. Fact, if you like what I have to say, go tell 10 people. Tell them to go to NikkiHaley.com, use this card, and get involved in our campaign. If you don't like what I have to say, shh. Just don't say anything. Listen, I love this state. I love this county. You've been very good to me, but let me make you this promise, and I make this very seriously. We will work together. We will win. And I promise you, our best days are ahead of us. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lexington. Thank you, South Carolina.